Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on the Daytime Update. If you've just joined, good afternoon. I'm Mphosa Tole. It's a tough time for consumers. From today, the cost of buying electricity from Eskom rockets by 15.6%. All of this comes as households are already feeling the pinch because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the rising petrol prices. Consumers who buy their electricity from municipal entities will see prices increase from July. For more on this, I'm joined by Wayne du Plessis, Operations Director at the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute. Wayne, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a double blow, essentially, for the energy sector. On one end, we have the electricity hikes, and the other end is petrol. And of course, all of this has a huge impact on ordinary South Africans.
Good afternoon, Mpho, and good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, as SAFC, we are very concerned by the electricity price hike because, in reality, it will affect the poorest citizens of our country the most. It will hold South Africans stuck in this endless cycle of poverty, and it is very concerning to us as people of faith at the moment.
Now, part of the scope of your work involves ensuring that energy justice is indeed reached for all South Africans to have accessible as well as affordable and sustainable energy. What role have you played during this time, if any at all?
Well, we first started off with doing a study within urban and peri-urban areas around the Western Cape where we are based. And really found out some baseline data about the choices that people are having to make at the moment because of the high price of electricity. So some of the shocking data that we found out that people are having to choose obviously between clothes and food, but also schooling versus the buying electricity. You know, exclusion of healthy fruits and veggies from diets is also something that we encountered due to the high prices of those and having to purchase cheaper processed foods. Another shocking example is a mother in our study actually told us that she has had to give her baby tea because the price of formula she cannot afford because of the high other costs. So, I mean, some of the other things that happened. The study participants also reported that they are using electricity for cooking and for lights and considered heating a luxury. And that's a worrying trend as the cold Cape Town winter comes in. So we are continuing to engage these people on the ground, but we are also working with them to have their voices heard at other levels, including at public engagements with people like NERSA and Eskom themselves.
Surely, you know, this tariff is likely to exacerbate that situation as you speak about how it's affecting community members on the ground and the shifts that they've had to make to survive.
Definitely. It's going to really affect those that are poorest the most. Due to load shedding, obviously, what has happened is a lot of middle class, or what we term as middle class South Africans, are able to try and move off-grid, or at least consider to move off-grid. And those that are poor and cannot afford to do that are left actually to pick up the pieces with the mismanagement of Eskom. They are forced to use things like paraffin, even though they know about the environmental health and safety challenges with it. But they are forced to because they have to have the energy mix based on affordability.
And Wayne, what do you make of some of the arguments? On one end, we're learning of this increase, but the challenges within Eskom, as we learn from what's coming out of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, for example, and how we continue to experience load shedding, and also where we're in a situation where there's no reliable electricity supply, and then there's this hike.
Definitely. I mean, it's an unbelievable, blow to South Africans, as you put it, after the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are still unfortunately in at the moment. People being retrenched, economic hardships, and it really is a gut punch to ordinary South Africans. The real issue lies in around poor governance and decision-making within the SOE of Eskom, obviously, and also poor oversight and lack of proper oversight by the regulator body NERSA, and it's gotten us into this mess now. While we do believe that there is obviously a way out, and as people of faith, we are calling for investment in renewables, which will able to provide a cheaper and much less environmentally damaging energy mix for all South Africans.
You speak about an investment in renewables. It's not a new conversation, and it's one that has been ongoing. How do you see it playing out as we face such a situation crippled by already an ailing economy and the impact that COVID-19 is having?
Unfortunately, you're right, Paul. It's not a new conversation. It's one that's been on the cards for a while within South Africa, and especially as some of our coal-fired plants are coming to the end of their lives in the next few years. And it is something which the government and which decision makers really have to consider very heavily, because without this kind of investment in these kind of renewables, we are not going to be able to provide energy to those Africans, especially those Africans that need it the most. I mean, another amazing thing that has come out of our study was that since 2008, there's been a 300% increase in the pricing of electricity. And that is just unbelievable. And it just creates an unmanageable system where ordinary Africans cannot survive.
Of course, there's also a domino effect. We speak about electricity on one end, and something that your organization is also passionate about is ensuring food and climate justice, another part of your advocacy work. And we know that petrol prices will also now go up and have a ripple effect on food prices. What are your inputs there?
Unfortunately, we do live in a system, or fortunately, but we live in a system where all of these things affect each other. And while we might be able to solve our energy crisis in the next few years, while we are still struggling with that, it has a huge impact in our food production, in how we make food, how we get to food, and also our levels of inequality with food provision. So what a lot of SAPSI is doing is working with faith leaders on the ground to create this kind of resilience to withstand these challenges which we see happening. We see climate change, we see energy challenges happening, and we want to create resilience within communities so that they are able to withstand these challenges in the future.
And very lastly, Wayne, before we let you go, what are some of the trends that you've observed? I mean, you've spoken a short while ago about how the price of electricity has risen dramatically over the past years.
Unfortunately, the one trend we see is consistent maladministration and malmanagement of these SOEs. That is due to a variety of factors and not down to one person or one action necessarily. But what we require is strong leadership, strong governance, and proper oversight by the regulated bodies that are managing these processes.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time, Wayne.